guys, and welcome back to Hilltop Farm, and welcome to this week's soapbox. Okay, as predicted last week, I think I upset a few people. I had about 4 subscribers leave the channel. Obviously didn't like what I had to say, and overall views on the channel have been about 1/3 of what they normally are. So as I say, I guess I upset a few people, but that's okay. I'm not doing it to put anyone down or belittle people or offend people. I just said what I said because I like ducks and I feel strongly about what I said. So that was the crux of it. And interestingly enough, I'm not going to name any names, but 2 of the channels that I'm subscribed to, and bear in mind I'm subscribed to quite a few, but 2 of them have posted videos in the last week showing their ducks, and one of them was quite a large channel, and it was the feature of this particular video was the fact that they had decided to give their ducks a pond. There was no reference to my channel, and I don't know whether it had anything to do with my channel. If it did, then I'm glad that my little channel has made the lives of a few ducks a little happier. If it was nothing to do with me and a coincidence, well, that's fine too, because both these channels were both guilty of the quite a few channels that I targeted that I felt were doing this. And so if they did it of their own accord or because they heard it somewhere else, that's fine. I'm just happy for their ducks that they'd done it. So that's good. Okay, back to the subject for this week. Well, onto the subject for this week. I haven't even told you about it, have I? Please bear with me. I am fighting back a cold and sore throat, so I will need to keep drinking my coffee. And I apologise for sounding as terrible as I do. I'm sure I sound a hell of a lot worse than I actually feel. I'm truly on the mend, I think. Okay, this week I want to talk to you, and this is not so much a soapbox rant other than a soapbox fantasy. So join in with me on this. I think we've all thought or said or heard things like, you imagine a world where everyone, went back to basics, went back to homesteading and, did all this. And yes, that sounds lovely. The only way it's ever going to happen is if you discover time travel and go back a couple of 100 years, because other than that, the Industrial Revolution's made everyone extremely lazy. And even homesteaders lazy. But at the end of the day, whereas 200 years ago, they would quite literally spend a day or 2 every week washing the clothes by hand, scrubbing them and stepping on them and beating them and bringing them out and drying them and ironing them with, heated up things on the wood fire. It was a nightmare. And anyone that still does that, I'm sorry, is a little bit, a little bit doolally, I reckon, because put it in an automatic washing machine. When it's finished, hang it on the line. I don't agree with tumble dryers unless it's pouring with rain and you just can't get it dry. We've all been there. But apart from that, if you can put it on on a clothesline, do. But apart from that, that should be the only thing you skip. Use an iron. Plug it in at the top of the range. The self-cleaning glides on the. Make that job easier, because it's tedious. It's monotonous. And as I say, washing is awful. But use environmentally friendly chemicals in your machines. And if you're in a position to, recycle the grey water out of it and put it, let it water your pastures, let it water, your orchards, or, kitchen gardens or whatever. But the actual principle of having the washing machine, I think they're a godsend. I think the washing machine and the fridge freezer are two of the greatest inventions man's ever come up with. So, I don't think it's feasible for the world to go back where everyone homesteads. The economy of the world's changed a lot in 200 years, and people don't have the time to work full time, and in an awful lot of cases, both partners work full time, some at multiple jobs. There's no time for homesteading sometimes, and I appreciate that. But when there is time, people should do it. Can you imagine a world, right? I think it's safe to say, and I'm talking about the West, addressing the third world is a different kettle of fish to me. As far as addressing the third world is concerned, we should be teaching these people how to garden and how to like animal husbandry, for things that do them good and for their environment. There's no possible purpose in sending a bunch of do-gooders into Africa to teach them all about the Bible and show them how to grow Brussels sprouts and cauliflower in the middle of the desert. It's stupid. You've got to grow things that will grow in that environment. And the people don't need religion. They have their own religion, their own beliefs. Just because we don't agree with that, or we don't support or follow the same beliefs, is neither here nor there. They're not hurting anyone believing what they believe, just the same as most people aren't hurting anybody. It's only the extremists. And troubles come where people want to push their religions onto other people. And so I don't believe in missionaries. If someone wants to join your church, they'll ask you questions. They'll come seeking you. And if they don't, if they're troubled and you think they might benefit, by all means. I think they call it witnessing. Tell them about your experience. Tell them how it's helped you. And maybe this might help you if you're interested. And then that's it. Sow the seed, walk away. If they're interested, they'll come to you for more information, for more help. If not, leave them alone. It's not something that is important despite what people think. It really isn't. Teaching people in third world countries how to support themselves, and I'm not talking about ploughing money into their governments so that they can do things on a big grand scale. Teach the people in the streets how to grow their own food and how to look after animals that supply them with food. Okay, that's what we need to do. But that's a whole nother soapbox, dealing with third world countries. I'm talking about Western countries here. Now, in Western countries, I think you'll find that the average family in a Western country lives in suburbia. Now, they have a house and a garden, and you know, you pretty much stretch your arm out the side windows of the house and you can shake hands with the people next door, and that's fine. Now, whether you're talking about a terraced house like the ones that they have in London, where you know, you literally have houses all next to each other, and they have almost, in Australia here we call it like a courtyard garden. You know, it might be, I don't know, 20 foot by 30 foot, and that's it, that's all you've got. But other people, you know, have quarter acre residential in a suburb. Can you imagine how the world would change, how different things would be if everyone that was in that position just kept 2, 3, maybe 4 chickens that gave them eggs, right? Depending on your family size as to how many you had. Got a big family, you might have 6 or 7 chickens. But let's face it, no one's going to complain of the noise because everyone on both sides got chickens too. But you imagine if that happened. Okay? Overnight, all these battery hen operations, they'd just close down, they'd disappear, they'd have no market for their product. Because what we do is we'd make sure that the people in the cities themselves, and I'm not talking about the metropolitan areas of the cities, I'm talking about in the cities. You know, I'm talking about people that like live in the middle of New York City, where they're in apartments, and even our city here, Adelaide, it's tiny on a world scale. But we have a city centre where there are apartment buildings and people don't have gardens. Those people should be supplied with their eggs from homesteaders, people that have a bit of land and can afford to have enough eggs, not just for their family, but to sell the excess to people like city dwellers who actually can't do it. But all the people in the metropolitan area don't need to supply them. They've got their own. And can you imagine if each one of those homes had its own vegetable garden? Even if, yeah, you're talking about a terraced house in London where they've only got a 20 foot by 30 foot back garden. And even if half of that was for entertaining and they've just got a small little bit at the end, they can grow peas and beans and tomatoes and, you know what I mean? They can do all of that, right? Their entertainment area could be full of pots that are all full of herbs, right? And it'll all be practical. I don't know about your country, but here, a wonderful thing that's happened probably in the last 10 to 15 years is that fresh herbs you can get in a greengrocers, you can get them in the supermarket, but they're so expensive. You get a little bunch of chives, they're like $3 or $4, and it's the same with anything. You know, you get thyme, you get half a dozen, you know, sprigs of it. And even if it's on special, it's like 2 for $4. But if everyone grew their own, it would be so much easier. We'd get rid of these hydroponic companies that produce it now, and we also save ourselves a bit of money. But houses could do that. Do you know what I mean? Even if it was basically compulsory for everyone to try and grow something, even if you're in a studio apartment in the middle of New York City and all you've got is one window, okay? Get some pots and plant thyme and rosemary and plant all the different culinary herbs that you actually use in your kitchen. You might not be able to grow them all, it might not be the right conditions, but you'll find some will work for where you are. And even if you discover you can only grow mint and thyme, then it's 2 herbs that you never have to buy from the supermarket again. And if everyone does that, the world would be a totally different place. Totally different place. Now, if on top of this, on top of the average family was growing their own vegetables, that in itself would lead to a glut of whether it be tomatoes or beans or whatever at certain times of the year. And this would force people to actually learn how to preserve it, because not many people, after a while, once you got into the habit of it, not many people would be prepared to have an abundance of free tomatoes, for example, through the summer months, that, let's face it, are fragrant and tasty and just wonderful. But then, of course, the season ends, and then it's winter and you decide you want tomatoes, and you go to the supermarket and there are tomatoes there that are the most ridiculous price, because they always are out of season, always are, and they're a pseudo sort of pink colour because they never quite get that brilliance they get when they're grown in the sun. And you cut them open and there's hardly any liquid in it. Do you know what I mean? There's this thick pink sort of woolly flesh that doesn't have any taste at all, and it's actually gross. You're not going to, I mean, people do it now because they don't know any different. Okay, but if it became sort of mandatory, for example, say in this, because everywhere is different as to what you can grow. I'm using tomatoes as an example because where we happen to live, tomatoes, we've got a Mediterranean climate here, and tomatoes grow like you wouldn't believe in the summer. So if everyone in metropolitan cities in Australia were forced, you have to grow tomatoes. You don't have a choice, you have to do it. Once they started doing it and they got that pleasure from picking their own, planting either a seed or a seedling and watching it grow, and it finally bears fruit. And that fruit is, as I say, so fragrant and so tasty. And of course, we all have been there. There's so much of it by the end of the season that, I mean, you can just eat them off the vine if you want, but there's never a shortage. You don't have to think about it, Oh, you know, you want some cheese on toast for supper? Oh, would you like some slices of tomato with that? You don't have to think about it. It's always there. This abundance of this very tasty thing. And when it's suddenly not there and someone wants to charge you a ridiculous price for this revolting thing that doesn't look the same, doesn't taste the same, you actually won't buy it. Because while you're having to buy that and put up with that and think, you're kidding me with this, there'll be something else at home, like in our case, be something else at home like peas that are in season. And, you know, every night kids will come home, they'll do their homework, mum or dad will plonk a bowl of seeds in their pod in front of the kids and say, okay, could you get them all out of the pods in the bowl, you know, need to cook them for dinner. And the next thing you know, one of the kids will eat one, discover how lovely they are, and you'll go to get your bowl and they will have eaten them all raw and they'll be giggling at you. But that's alright, because there's more on the vines outside, you just go and get some more. So when you're enjoying your abundance of peas, you don't care about the tomatoes because you're not paying for those crappy ones there. And then it will suddenly dawn on you, well, we've got an abundance. Is there any way we can do something with these so that in winter we've still got some? Do you know what I mean? And then they will want to learn how to preserve it, whether it be dehydrating it, canning it, blanching it and freezing it, whatever. And it would just be, it would change the world. You're not going to take it back 200 years. But I reckon it would make it a better world than the one we live in. Now I sort of say, you know, you've got to make people grow tomatoes or whatever. Now I know you can't physically do that, but there should be incentive. There should be an incentive plan by governments, local governments, or whoever. There should be incentives whereby you know, the government subsidise in some way, subsidise you, you know, and that will encourage people to do it. I know here, because in Australia, in the past, water has been an issue. You know, we don't have the rainfall of most other countries. So, you know, water does become an issue. And so I remember they did some sort of incentive whereby, for example, if you bought a new washing machines were all graded as to how efficient they were with water. And if you got one that had, you know, so many stars or less, which meant you used less water, you actually got a certain amount back for the washing machine. And I remember one year we managed to get an incredible deal on a washing machine that was on special, and I think it was on special for about $500. And my wife, I don't like shopping with her because she embarrasses me. She, for example, will go into the store and she'll go up to the display model, find something wrong with it, and then tell the salesman that I want this one, this exact machine right here, and I want to take it now, but I'm not paying this price because it's got a little dent in it or a scratch in it. And this washing machine had a dent, you know, like one of those dimple sort of dents in the side of the wretched thing. so you wouldn't even see it. And she knocked them down to like $400 from its sale price of $500. This machine was about $800 to start with. She gets it for $400. We take it home. We fill out all the necessary paperwork because it had the necessary star points for its water conservation. And a few weeks later we got a check for sort of $200 from the government. So we paid like $200 in effect for this brand new front-loading washing machine. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But if they can afford to do things like that, to encourage us to use less water, then they can afford to encourage us to do other things. They can afford to clamp down on the food industry with labelling, full disclosure about ingredients. I mean, they have the power, if they want to ban certain things from being sold. I mean, I know they wouldn't, but they could technically ban all processed foods. Now, as I say, I know they wouldn't, and we all know why they wouldn't. It's politics and money, and the two go hand in hand. Money talks. So it'll never happen. But it would be wonderful if it did. So when you go to sleep tonight, put your little head on the pillow and dream, and just imagine what the world would be like if everyone, at very least, grew a few herbs in pots, and those that had the space had a few chickens and a little veggie patch. And if you're a family of 6 and you've got a good sized back garden, make half of it veggie patch. You could certainly feed a family of 6 on a decent sized veggie patch. You'd certainly feed them most of their vegetables, if not all, from a patch. So we need to get that fantasy in action, I think. But anyway, as I say, sort of time travel, it is a fantasy. And I hope all my fellow YouTubers go to sleep tonight with their heads on the pillow and they have pleasant dreams about that fantasy. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give us a big thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the grey bell next to the subscribe button so you receive notifications every time we release a video. I hope you've had a great weekend and sweet dreams. Goodbye from Hilltop Farm. See ya!